Here are some thoughts I have on dynamic views, hyperglossaries, and different ways to have visual nodes and connections on screen. First of all, just to show the implementation of hyperglossaries as it works now, you can be in any document. Here I'm using author, of course. Select text, spawn author, and whatever text you selected, such as in this case the word publish, will then be in author. You hit G for glossary, or you can go share glossary. Here you get the dialog, excuse me, where you can enter short definition, long definition, and then an experimental relationship with other terms, which can hopefully be used at some point with more intelligent knowledge graph systems. That will then be posted to WordPress in a completely standard manner, so that it should be possible and relatively easy to extract this into whatever system wants to use the glossary. In this case, I am pretending that Liquid Author can also use it. It cannot yet. But after the word publish in the second paragraph, you now have two hard brackets. That is to indicate that this is a glossary term. The end user and the author should be able to choose interactions, but this is a default one that I'm looking at. The reader can click on it, and it expands to show the short definition. The user can then click on that, and it can come up in several things. Here, a basic example of a kind of a knowledge graph from a layperson's perspective, me. The visualization here uses colors and lines with names on them, but there's only very, very few. This is kind of relating to how I'm thinking of trying to be very text-based, but as we go through the next couple of minutes, we'll see that, excuse me, that falls down a bit. Here, for example, is a large set and very difficult to read knowledge graph. I call it a knowledge graph from basically just graph, and there's stuff in there. You can choose to see only the top headings, of course, maybe zoom in, and then you can choose to see a specific subset. For me, what is really, really important here will be the actual interactions of how that is done. Maybe you choose to do the keyboard 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. to choose how many levels deep to see. I think it's very important to experiment with what zooming, either command plus or minus, or pinching on the trackpad. The actual tangible feel of interacting with this information is absolutely crucial. It's not a matter of here's some screenshots, that's what's going to happen. The actual visual is, of course, only half the story. So here we have a document which is viewed as what I call dynamic view. The user now wants to go through his or her citation storage and decide if there's anything relevant to put in. So they do a gesture, document collapses to the bottom of the screen, and here we have lots of research documents, illustrated really crudely by just saying research document. You can pull down to do a keyword search if you want. You can also drag in from the side to specify what the horizontal axis means from older to newer. You can also do it from top to bottom, not illustrated. And you can also know that your main documents are still at the bottom of the screen, kind of docked under there to keep referring to. So in this example, we are going to do a search for Engelbart and Ted Nelson. So what we see is Engelbart and Ted Nelson illustrated differently, different colors, and the thicknesses of the lines reflect how many occurrences of that keyword text is inside these particular documents. This is something that has been suggested to me by Sarah Walton, that we should be able to save these views. So the Engelbart, Ted Nelson, and so on, and many others, you should be able to easily choose, I don't know, a tab or a keyword or a menu to say, I want to see that kind of analysis of the document. Here's a thought where you can see the documents that have the green arrow, which has an arrowhead on both sides, they cite each other. The top documents only cite the ones on the left or the ones on the right, but not the other way around. So you can build ideas for different citation flows. And again, very experimental. It can be done in many different ways. So now the user takes one of these documents that through this kind of analysis has been found relevant, drags down, the main document comes up. The user then drags onto a heading in the document, and it is locked in for the user to do as he or she pleases with later. Alternatively, you can also have a line showing where it is in this space if you want to. If there are too many documents, we have to consider cloudy ways of showing it. So here I'm just trying to show that these types of visual systems can be combined. And for instance, if you have lots of cloudy stuff, you do things and then you get to a certain threshold, maybe you see the names again. Manual basic uses of this that I think are important are exploring, comparing lists, especially here you have the problem and the goal, and in the middle I have what I'm trying to do about it. It's a mess, it's hard to read, so the interactions again will be very important. For instance, selecting any of these nodes or multiples and only seeing or more highlighted seeing the connections to them and so on. This is just a slightly more complicated version of that. And yet another one. And the final one here is kind of the opposite. This is what I think of napkin-like thinking. This is Christopher Gutteridge just playing around on the screen to do different bits of thinking. So there is no inherent otherness of any of these. None of them are documents or citations or headings. He's just moving things around. But this should now be possible to put into other systems. So thank you very much for having a look at these basic little tests. That's the little snowflake on the top of the iceberg, and we have a huge amount of more work to do.